remember the exact moment it happened. Someone I cared about was demanding an explanation for a decision I made, for a boundary I set, for choosing myself, and I felt it, that familiar pressure in my chest. The one that says, explain yourself, defend yourself, make them understand, fix this, prove you're not the bad guy. I opened my mouth. The words were right there, all lined up, ready to deploy. A full explanation of my reasoning, my motivations, my thought process. But something in me just didn't. I closed my mouth. I looked at them, and I said nothing. And you know what happened? They got more upset, more insistent, more demanding. So you're just not going to explain. You're just going to stand there. You think you don't owe me an explanation, and that's when it hit me. They weren't asking for an explanation. They were asking for ammunition. They wanted my reasons, so they could dismantle them. They wanted my justification, so they could argue with it. They wanted me to hand over my internal process so they could pick it apart until I doubted myself enough to change my mind. And I realized something that changed everything. Explanation is a gift, not an obligation. I don't owe anyone access to my decision-making process, especially not people who've already decided I'm wrong. That was the moment I stopped explaining myself. But here's the part most people don't understand. We're taught from childhood that explaining ourselves is respect, that justifying our decisions is maturity, that if we can't articulate our reasoning in a way that satisfies others, maybe our reasoning isn't valid. Think about it. How many times were you told as a kid, explain yourself when you did something an adult didn't like? How many times did because I said so feel unfair when directed at you, but you absorbed the lesson that your decisions needed external approval to be legitimate? We carry that into adulthood. We think good people explain themselves. We think strong people can justify their choices. We think if we just explain it right, clearly enough, thoroughly enough, people will understand and respect our decisions. But here's what nobody tells you. Explanation is a gift, not an obligation. Let me say that again, because it took me years to understand it. Explanation is a gift you give to people who've earned it, who approach your decisions with genuine curiosity instead of predetermined judgment, who actually want to understand you instead of change you. But most people demanding explanations, they're not curious, they're controlling. And this is where everything changes. I learned this the hard way, through relationships where I explained until I was exhausted, through friendships where I justified every boundary until the boundary itself disappeared, through family dynamics where I defended my choices until I started doubting them myself. Every time someone demanded an explanation and I gave it, I wasn't being respectful. I was being compliant. I was handing them the tool they needed to dismantle my autonomy. And the saddest part? It never worked. No matter how good my explanation was, if they'd already decided I was wrong, the explanation just gave them more things to argue with. The first time you don't explain yourself to someone who expects it, it feels wrong. Like you're being rude, like you're being cold, like you're being the difficult one. Your chest gets tight, your mind races. Just tell them, just explain. It'll take 30 seconds. Why are you making this harder than it needs to be? But you don't. You hold the line. You say something simple like I've made my decision, or I'm not going to discuss this, or sometimes just no, and they escalate. Because your refusal to explain feels like a challenge to their authority over you. They push harder. They frame it as you being unreasonable. They make you feel like the problem is your unwillingness to communicate, not their unwillingness to respect your autonomy. And this is the test. This is where most people break. Because it's uncomfortable. Because it feels mean. Because we've been taught that good people make others comfortable, even at the cost of their own peace. But here's what they'll never admit. If you hold the line, something shifts. Not immediately, not dramatically, but gradually. The person demanding. The explanation realizes they don't have the power they thought they had. They realize you're not a child they can demand justifications from. They realize your decisions are yours and yours alone. Some people respect that. They step back, they accept the boundary, and those relationships get healthier, cleaner, more honest. But some people don't. They get angry. They call you cold. They accuse you of not caring. They frame your boundary as evidence of your character flaws, and this is where it gets hard. Because these are often people you love, people you've known for years, people whose approval you've been chasing your entire life. And you have to choose between explaining yourself into exhaustion to keep them comfortable, or standing firm in your autonomy and accepting that they might not like who you actually are. I'm not going to tell you that choice is easy. It's not. Losing people hurts. Even when you know you're doing the right thing. Even when you know they were demanding something you couldn't give without losing yourself. But here's the part most people miss. The people who truly love you don't need you to explain every decision you make. They trust you. They respect your judgment. They might ask questions out of genuine curiosity, but they don't demand justification as proof of your worth. And the people who do demand constant explanation, who need you to defend every boundary, who make you feel like your autonomy is something you have to earn through good enough reasoning, those people don't actually respect you. They respect your compliance. There's a difference. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And this is where everything changes. Now let me tell you what actually changes when you stop explaining yourself. Your energy comes back. You didn't realize how much energy you were spending on justification until you stopped doing it. Hours of mental rehearsal, preparing arguments, anticipating objections, defending yourself to people who weren't even in the room. All of that just stops. And the space it leaves is enormous. Your decisions get clearer. When you're not filtering every choice through, will I be able to defend this? You start making decisions based on what's actually right for you. Not what sounds good when explained, not what other people will approve of, just what's true. Your boundaries get stronger because you're not negotiating them anymore. You're not presenting them as proposals that need approval. You're stating them as facts. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm not doing. No justification required. Your relationships clarify. The people who needed you to be smaller, who needed you to justify your existence, who needed your autonomy to be conditional on their approval, those people drift away, and it hurts. But what replaces them is better. People who respect you as you are. People who don't need you explained. Your self-respect returns. This is the big one. When you stop explaining yourself to people who don't actually want to understand, you stop betraying yourself. You stop handing over pieces of your internal world to be judged by people who haven't earned that access, and slowly, steadily, you start to trust yourself again. Because you're not outsourcing your decision-making to the court of public opinion. You're not waiting for consensus to act. You're just being yourself and letting that be enough. Here's what most people don't understand about the moment you stop explaining yourself. It's not about being rude. It's not about being closed off. It's not about refusing to communicate. It's about understanding that your inner world, your reasoning, your decision-making process, that's yours. It belongs to you. And access to it is a privilege you grant, not a right others possess. Some people have earned that access. The people who've proven they handle your vulnerability with care, who ask questions to understand, not to control, who respect your autonomy even when they disagree with your choices. Those people get explanations, not because they demand them, but because you want to share with them, because the relationship is built on trust, not control. But everyone else, the people who demand explanations like they're owed them, the people who use your reasoning as ammunition, the people who won't respect your decision unless you can justify it to their satisfaction, they don't get access anymore. Not because you're being difficult, but because you finally understand what they're actually asking for. They're asking for control, and you're not giving it anymore. Remember this. Explanation is a gift, not an obligation. If you've spent your whole life explaining yourself to people who never really wanted to understand, if you're exhausted from justifying boundaries that should be self-evident, if you're tired of handing over your internal world to be judged by people who haven't earned that trust, you're not alone. This is the moment you stop, the moment you realize explanation is a gift, not an obligation. The moment you understand that your autonomy doesn't require anyone else's approval. Won't be comfortable at first, People will push back. They'll call you cold. They'll accuse you of not caring. They'll make you feel